Alien tech or cosmic mystery? A conversation with Avi Loeb. A special edition of Interviewing the Legends with Ray Shasho.
Welcome to Interviewing the Legends, where curiosity meets the cosmos. I'm your host, Ray Shasho, and today we are venturing into the unknown with one of the most provocative minds in astrophysics, Professor Avi Loeb. Today's broadcast is brought to you by my new novel, The Liberty Code. The novel explores a tense future where political intrigue, military conflict, and extraterrestrial intervention collide in a high-stakes battle for the survival of humanity. From Harvard to the stars, Professor Avi Loeb has challenged the boundaries of mainstream science, asking bold questions about interstellar visitors like Oumuamua and now Three Eye Atlas. Is it a comet, a probe, something else entirely? In this episode, we'll explore the anomalies, the evidence, and the implications of what might be the most mysterious object to enter our solar system. So buckle up. This conversation might just change how you see the universe. Hello, Professor Loeb.
Thanks for having me. It's a great pleasure.
Thank you very much. We know a lot so far after it passed behind the sun. Lately, I heard something about 16 fragments.
Well, that's perhaps a reflection of my essay about it yesterday. The thing is that we observed the object getting brighter and bluer than the sun when it came close to the sun, and also changing course. There was non-gravitational acceleration detected, and that could originate from two possible causes. One of them is just the cometary evaporation. When you have pockets of ice on the surface of a rock, they sublimate under sunlight. The sun warms them up, and then they go straight into gas, and you get jets that push the rock in the opposite direction. There is recoil. So that happens in comets, and that could have been the reason for the non-gravitational acceleration. I calculated that the object should have lost at least 15% of its mass, if that were the case of a natural comet. However, it could also be the result of propulsion by some engine that the object has. And since then, that was around the time that it passed closest to the sun, but a week has passed by, and we have some images of Three Eye Atlas after the perihelion, the passage closest to the sun. And what we see are a network of 7 jets at least coming out of it, tightly collimated, some of them headed towards the sun, some away from the sun. So it's not like we have only a tail, as we usually see in the context of a comet. There are definitely jets going in the opposite direction to what is usually seen. And moreover, they go a large distance. The jets towards the sun travel a distance of about 1,000,000 kilometers before they fade away. And in the opposite direction, we see jets going all the way to 3,000,000 kilometers. And if this was a natural comet, I calculated that well, they would move relatively slowly. That's the characteristic speed of the outflow, outgassing from a rock. And it would take them a month to 3 months to make that distance. But more importantly, in the direction of the sun, there is the solar wind that is pushing against that jet. And it needs to carry a lot of mass in order to penetrate through the solar wind. And I found that given the properties that we know about the solar wind, that there are 5 billion tons of material included in these jets if the object is natural. And that's a lot of mass. And to vaporize such a large amount of mass, you basically need a large surface area exposed to sunlight. So for that, you need the object to be bigger than 20 kilometers in diameter. And that's much bigger than we previously thought the object is based on the Hubble telescope image and so forth. So So one possibility is that there is much more surface area exposed to sunlight because the object broke up into fragments. And so in the natural case, in the natural comet scenario, there might have been fireworks. The object broke up and we ended up with much more evaporation than we expected.
Well, December 19th, I guess it's going to be the closest to the Earth, which is about 160 million miles away. And
Yeah.
NASA guarantees there's no threat to Earth. How could they guarantee that if they don't know what we're dealing with?
No, they cannot guarantee, because the second possibility is that these jets that we see are coming out of thrusters, the way we use on spacecraft. And in that case, the speed of the gas that comes out of the exhaust of those thrusters is usually 10 to 100 times larger, faster than you expect from cometary evaporation. And that means you need much less material coming out of these thrusters to give the object the same amount of momentum. So in case of a technological object, in fact, it's a very small fraction of the mass that is being lost. And we can easily tell the difference between these two by studying the speed of the jets, and that can be measured with spectrographs on the Hubble Space Telescope, on the Webb telescope, so we can figure it out in the coming weeks, leading to closest approach to Earth. And that will be, as you said, the 19th of December, and 6 days before Christmas. And
Right.
my hope is we will not get any unwanted gifts for the holidays.
I've heard something about two spacecraft, Hera and Europa Clipper. Are they supposed to fly close to the comet? Have you heard about that?
Not very close, no. And
Yeah.
it would be possible really to operate them. But there is another one called JUICE that is on the way to Jupiter, operated by the European Space Agency. And again, it will not be close enough to collect materials, for example, from the jets that are visible. It will be at a much larger distance. So the next milestone is beyond the fact that it will come closest to Earth on December 19th, is that on March 16th, 2026, it will come closest to Jupiter. And there we have a spacecraft that is called Juno that will be able to observe it. If Juno had the original fuel that it started with, it could have intercepted it, which would have been amazing. It would have come very close to it and taken a close-up photograph. And I wrote a paper about that, and Representative Anna Paulina Luna suggested to NASA to use Juno for that purpose. But unfortunately, most of the fuel on Juno was already used. So it will still look at it, but from a distance. And it has a dipole radio antenna that will be used to check if 3 Atlas emits any radio waves. Because the one coincidence that I realized is that there was in 1977 a mysterious radio signal called the WOW signal.
Right.
And it came from a direction that is within 9 degrees from the arrival direction of 3 Atlas. And in 1977, 3 Atlas was at a distance of 600 times the Earth-Sun separation from us. So in order for us to detect such a signal from it, it needed to transmit a gigawatt of power, which is what we get from a typical nuclear reactor here on Earth. So it's not beyond the technologies that we can imagine. And of course, I encourage the radio observers to monitor it just to check because if we detect the radio transmission, we don't expect it from a rock. It will be a clear technological signature. There are several ways by which you can distinguish a rock from a spacecraft. One is the transmission of a signal that you don't expect from a rock. Another is artificial lights. Another one is maneuvering. You would see that there is some evidence for an engine that because the maneuver cannot be explained by a cometary evaporation. And then finally, of course, if you come close to such an object and you take a close-up photograph, it's easy to tell the difference between a technological object and a natural object. So we still have to detect a clear, unambiguous signal from 3I Atlas. There was evidence that it became bluer than the sun, so maybe Could it be artificial lights? Could it be a hot engine that gave that signature? We don't know. But in the coming weeks, it will be easier for us to observe it than any time before, and it would be straightforward to tell the difference between a natural object and a technological one. And what I usually, people ask me, what about all these influencers, commentators that know the answer? And I say that the foundation of science is the humility to learn, not the arrogance of expertise, of people that pretend to be the adults in the room and know the answer in advance.
There's a lot of that on YouTube. That's why everybody turns to you.
Well, yeah, there is a lot of misinformation and a lot of people have opinions, and some of them are quite aggressive. These are not the people that you would expect. Some of them are scientists, and they just and they are comet experts. And I was asked actually recently, why is it that they're so hostile to alternative interpretations that it's not a comet? And I said, well, you should think of them as AI systems, that we train on a data set usually, and what they say depends on the data set that we train them on. So the comet experts were trained on data sets associated with comets. So anything in the sky, according to them, should be a comet. When Oumuamua, the first object was found to have anomalies, there was no cometary tail around it, no gas, no dust, yet it exhibited the non-gravitational acceleration. So they said, oh, it's a dark comet, a comet where you don't see the signature of a comet. And, they would say the same thing about a spacecraft.
What happened to Oumuamua? Where is it?
Well, it's on its way out of the solar system, but we can't see it. It was relatively small, the size of a football field. The 3I Atlas is the size of a city. It's more than 5 kilometers. Oumuamua was less than 100 meters. So they were very different. And also the anomalies were very different for the two objects.
Now, NASA never released those photos, right, from Mars?
Oh, yeah. It's
because there's no excuse now.
I'm counting 40 days, and Representative Anna Paulina Luna actually very graciously sent a letter, official letter, to the acting administrator of NASA, Sean Duffy, a week ago, and asked him to make sure that the data is released as soon as possible. And the reply that she got from NASA is that it's some bureaucratic hurdle that prevents them from sharing the data during a shutdown. But the same camera, the high-res camera on board the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter that took the images on October 2nd and 3rd, when 3I Atlas was within a distance of 29 million kilometers from Mars, it released other images, but not of 3I Atlas since then. And the claim is that anything to do with 3I Atlas has to get approval from the NASA headquarters, and they are not allowed to do anything until the shutdown is over. These images are extremely precious,
of course,
because they have a 30-kilometer resolution per pixel, and also they look at the object from the side. The Hubble image, for example, was when the object was approaching us and the sun, and it was very far away. So we were basically looking at it 10 degrees away from the direction of the sun from it. And so as a result, we got sort of a view of it edge on, kind of whatever the glow that was preceding it towards the sun was looked at as edge on. But when the object passed close to Mars, then the high-rise camera took an image of it sideways. And that would be extremely interesting to look at. So my hope is, as the government shutdown ends, I actually wrote an essay about it today, and I said, I think it's too bad that the bureaucracy took over a priority relative to science. I think someone in the NASA administration should have said, okay, we are now being furloughed, but this data is sitting on a computer somewhere. Let's just put it on a public website where other scientists can use it.
Exactly.
I'm not saying let's make a press conference about it. They could have just shared it.
Sure.
And to let bureaucracy dictate how quickly data or knowledge, scientific knowledge is shared, I think is inappropriate
Very
because
sad. Yeah.
it's a time-sensitive situation. We
Mhm.
are designing future observations based on what we know, and what we know should include these images.
I agree. That I got a kick out of this headline from the Times of Israel from November 8th. If the Earth is about to burn, will NASA still keep its data locked? That was a good
Well,
one.
that's a very good question, and you know, I don't know if you saw the movie Don't Look Up, but it was
Yeah, I did.
quite an accurate depiction of what you expect humanity to do in case of a catastrophe. And most people will just continue doing their routines and ignore it. And that includes, the scientific community that would basically ridicule anything outside, what they're used to. And so it's really unfortunate because we are supposed to be intelligent, and that's one reason I'm seeking intelligence in outer space. I realize I cannot find it on university campuses.
That's a good one. It's amazing. They're saying this thing could be billions years old, and coming from Interstellar. We don't
Well,
know where it originated, right?
we don't know where it originated, and even that statement is not necessarily
I
correct.
don't believe that. I
Well,
don't believe
let,
that
let me
statement.
explain how they arrived to this. And in fact, I did the calculation in a paper with my student, the undergraduate student. So what we did is basically follow the trajectory back in time of 3
Right.
Atlas and figure out where it may have originated. And what you find is that it came into the solar system at a high speed of 60 kilometers per second. That's 600 times the fastest race car that we have, 600 times that. And I know this number because I was invited to a car race, a NASCAR car race in California, Bakersfield,
Hmm.
by a racer that decided to put my image and 3i Atlas on the hood of his car. So I went there actually a few weeks ago. But at any event, so 3i Atlas came at a high speed, and then we can go back in time. And if you associate this high speed with the parent star that ejected it, that
Hmm.
originally had it near in its planetary system, and then it was ejected from there, then indeed it needs to be an old star because old stars get kicked around much more than young stars, and the high speed would be explained that way. However, that assumes that the ejection speed was negligible, that it inherited whatever speed the parent star had. But in reality, it depends on the ejection mechanism. You can have a situation where the star itself doesn't move much relative to the Milky Way disk, but the ejection speed is high. Say the ejection speed is 60 kilometers per second. In that case, the star could be at rest and you would get 60 kilometers per second for the interstellar object 3i Atlas, unrelated to how old the star is, has nothing to do with it. It has to do with the ejection speed. So whoever claims we know the age of this object, they don't recognize the caveat that it assumes that the object inherited the original speed of the parent star, and it may have not. And even that, in that case, when you go back in time, you can see that the object goes through near many stars along its path. There is no way to tell how long it was traveling, where it
Hmm.
came from.
Exactly.
So all of this is highly uncertain. And all of this is also under the assumption that it's a natural rock that came from stars. But, if it's made mostly, even if it's natural, and it's made mostly of carbon dioxide, it's not the same type of comets that we see in the solar system made
Right.
mostly of water rich. And all the comet experts were saying as soon as it was discovered, it's old and water rich. We know that. Then the Webb telescope found that it has only 4% of the gas around it is water by mass, only 4%. So most of it is carbon dioxide. So, it could be a completely different factory that makes such objects than protoplanetary disks. And moreover, I calculated how much material there is per unit volume in interstellar space. You cannot explain the delivery of such a giant object, more than 5 kilometers in diameter, over a period of a decade. That's the duration of the survey. The most optimistic calculations implies that it should have arrived once per 10,000 years or longer. So it's extremely rare. And we are missing something. Okay,
We are missing something. I
so
agree.
that's what led me to suggest maybe it's not drawn from
Right.
the reservoir of known material in interstellar space. Maybe it was targeting the inner solar system. And lo and behold, it's actually moving in the plane of the planets within 5 degrees. That also suggested maybe the trajectory was designed by some intelligence.
I'm amazed how fast it traveled through our universe, our own universe. That tells you something right there, I think.
Well, the speed of its travel, is high, but it could potentially originate from a natural origin. We
Right.
see objects moving that fast, but the direction where it came, which is aligned with the planets around the sun, that is very surprising because the chance of that happening at random is 1 in 500.
hmm what kind of data would convince you that this is definitely artificial?
Oh, so we know that these jets are coming out of it. We
Right.
see them right now in the latest images. So we can measure the speed of the material in the jet. We can estimate the mass per unit volume in the jet. That's all in principle observable with existing instruments that we have in the coming weeks. And so if we see, for example, that the jets have a speed that exceeds by orders of magnitude the speed expected from volatiles on pockets of ice on the surface of a rock, then it would be a clean technological signature because there is no way that we can get the outflow from a comet to move at a high speed of the type that technological thrusters are using. The exhaust speed of rockets or even ion thrusters or other types. And we will be able to tell also from the composition, not just the speed of the material, but the composition of it, that it may have originated from technological thrusters. The other difference is a natural object may break up. If we see it broken up to pieces, then we know it's natural,
Right.
because it's sunlight that broke it up. However, if it maintains its integrity, we have to explain how do these jets penetrate the distance of 1 million kilometers through the solar wind. And so there are simple ways to tell whether it's technological or natural in the coming weeks. And science is exciting because it's a learning experience. It's work in progress. Very different than what my colleagues are arguing. They're arguing, we will tell you the answer. Just listen to us.
Okay.
And by the way, that's one reason why the public loses trust in scientists, because they lecture as if they're teachers in a classroom. They tell the public what the public needs to know according to them. They don't engage with the public. And the way I approach it is very differently. I show that the scientific method is based on work in progress. You pay attention to the clues, just like a detective story, and then you are trying to figure out what really happens. And when the public sees the process of learning, as you get more and more data, you figure out what's going on.
Sure.
They feel part of it, and it sounds completely reasonable what scientists are doing. And so there are many kids that tell their parents, I get emails every day, tell their parents that now that when they see what, the way that the analysis of 3I Atlas is going, the data collection, the fact that we can learn more about it as time goes on, they're inspired to become scientists by seeing me on television, by seeing me on podcasts. And, every day I have of order 8 interviews, which is a lot because I'm trying to do some scientific work as well. And I'm teaching also a class. But I see it as a very important opportunity to demonstrate that science is fun and everyone can take part in it, even Kim Kardashian.
Yeah, I saw that. I'll be your intern.
Well, she showed great interest in 3I Atlas, Kim, and approached through a tweet the acting administrator of NASA, Sean Duffy, and he replied to her. He told her that there is nothing to worry about and it's not aliens.
I wish it was aliens because, I do believe we're not alone in the universe. And
Yeah,
there's been,
it might still be.
yeah,
Whatever he said is irrelevant. What matters is the data that we will collect in the coming weeks. Once again, it's not science is not about authority. The hierarchy doesn't matter. You can have a kid that looks at the data and realizes what it is, and when the professionals are telling the kid what it should be, but
right.
it's really the evidence that nails the case.
We all got to have an open mind. It's very, very
That's
important.
extremely important. Yeah, because
Mhm.
otherwise you don't learn anything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I got a question about Three Eye Atlas. Is it moving in a straight line all the time?
Well, it's close to straight. It came at a high speed, 60 kilometers per second into the solar system.
Right.
And then when it reached closest to the sun, it was moving at 68 kilometers per second. So a small correction of all the, 12% or so. Um, And that is because it's moving so fast that the sun accelerates it relatively little at the distance of closest approach. It deflects it a little bit, so it deviates from the original direction that it was moving, but not by a lot. Compare that to Oumuamua, the first interstellar object.
Right.
It was moving much slower relative to the sun. So when it came close to the sun, it was deflected by a very large angle, sort of like a U-turn, made a U-turn.
It did, really.
Yeah,
Huh.
yeah. So the slower an object is, the more affected it is by the gravity of the sun because it spends more time close to the sun. So the sun's gravity bends its trajectory. But 3I Atlas came very fast, and therefore the sun is affecting it for a short period of time. The time it takes for it to cross the distance of closest approach, for 3 Atlas, it was
Hmm.
203 million kilometers. At the speed of 68 kilometers per second, it crosses it in 1 month. So it was basically affected for a month by the sun, whereas uh, Oumuamua was affected much longer and it came closer to the sun. So it was the trajectory was bent by a lot. So to answer your question, the sun does deflect it, not by
Hmm.
much. But now we see also evidence for non-gravitational acceleration, meaning in addition to the force that the sun is exerting on it, it displays some additional force that whose origin is probably the jets that we see. And the question is whether this is a signature of propulsion in case of a technological object or a signature of just cometary evaporation.
If we confirm, I don't know if NASA will, but I know you will. If we confirm alien technology, what should humanity do next at
Well,
that point?
it will have a huge impact on many things. First, we would realize that we have siblings in our family of intelligent civilizations within the Milky Way galaxy. So it will change the way we think about the universe. Until
Hmm.
now, the universe was cold and lonely. It was made of matter, radiation. But imagine having siblings out there changes everything. You get some emotional connection
Hmm.
to the universe. And also, it illustrates that we are not necessarily the most accomplished civilization. There might be someone better than us. Maybe our siblings are more accomplished. We might get jealous at what they achieved and be inspired to imitate them. Then there are implications to religion because, I mean, there was a group of religious scholars that came to speak with me at Harvard, and they asked me, how would it affect our religious belief? And I said, I have two daughters, and when the second one was born, it didn't take away any of my love to the first one.
Right.
And so thinking that God is a parent that can attend only to one child is very limiting.
Right.
So if we have siblings, it would actually trigger a greater awe or an appreciation
Sure.
of the work of God. It shouldn't take anything away. So they were happy with this answer. But it will definitely change the way we think about ourselves. When you realize you have brothers and sisters, it's very different than if you're the only child, the way we thought about it earlier. And there will be implications to geopolitics because right now, citizens trust governments to protect them, but the protection is against adversarial nations or against rocks falling from the sky, meteors. And, these are the kinds of protections offered by current governments. But if there is alien technology out there and that could potentially be a threat to humanity, we are not protecting, we're not defending Earth at the moment. So we will have to change our priorities and perhaps take a significant fraction of the military budgets worldwide. The total is $2.4 trillion. So suppose we take $1 trillion a year and invest it in planetary defense, defending the Earth, because we are all in the same boat.
Right.
We need to cooperate on that. And so that would mean deploying a network of sensors that would alert us to an incoming
Right.
technological threat. And then when a threat comes along, we have to decide what to do about it. And that depends on the details of what the visitor has in terms of equipment and what kind of intent it has. So just like having a visitor to your backyard, you have to observe it before you decide how to respond to it. But the important thing is that it can show up at your front door, and that's what some scientists are missing. They talk about this object as if they talk about a galaxy that is billions of light years away. And in that case, you can have your most likely interpretation, and that's fine, and you can dismiss any other interpretation. Because there is no, in the case of a galaxy far away, there are no implications to the future of society. But if you have a visitor to your backyard, that could change our future, and therefore we must take seriously the possibility of a black swan event, a situation where you assign a small likelihood that an object would be technological, but it ends up being technological. And, governments are used to that. The intelligence agencies are used to that. Very often they consider unlikely events like a terrorist attack, and they take it very seriously. They put a lot of resources on that just to collect as much data as possible to figure out if it's a real threat or not.
Sure.
But scientists would not do that. They would say, at the 98% confidence, I can see that it's a comet, therefore it's a comet, and don't even mention any other possibility because it's very likely to be a comet. That's not the right approach in this particular case, because you want to get as much data as possible and take seriously, even if it's a low probability, the possibility that it might be alien technology.
I think Stephen Hawking said it was a bad idea, right, to seek out aliens.
Yeah. No, he said that we shouldn't transmit any radio signals or send signals to outer space that would reveal that we exist, because we don't know if there are predators out there. And that's a very good point, because other civilizations may have been burned already, so they are very careful. That's why we don't detect them. It's called the dark forest hypothesis. If you are in a dark forest and you're worried about predators, you would not make a sound. You would stay quiet, but you would watch everything, your surroundings, everything around you to protect yourself. And perhaps that, there are aliens not far from us, and that's what they're doing. And how would we know? Because once they realize that we potentially are a threat to them, they would come and visit us. Okay, so that's why we should watch out.
Well, in my new book, they're friendly, and they've been helping us for years, and that's what I believe. I believe they've already been here. I really do.
Yeah, that's quite possible, and of course, it's a blind date, of interstellar propulsion. So on a blind date, you can adapt an optimistic point of view and assume that your dating partner is very friendly. I took that approach when I met my wife on a blind date, and it worked out well. But any person who went through many blind dates would tell you that you have to make sure that your dating partner is not a serial killer.
Yeah, it's true. That's true. That's very interesting. I got to ask you this. The Bob Lazar theory about Area 51. What do you think about that? About he's been on 51 and he actually saw extraterrestrial in the spaceship. What do you think about his claim?
Well, he's not the only one. I was briefing Congress on May 1st, 2025, and I heard stories similar to that one. And the question is it real or just hallucinated? Of course, the only way to find out is to see the actual evidence. And I was never presented that evidence. I only heard stories. And as much as I want to believe stories, you have to keep in mind that, when there is a car accident, people give you very different accounts for what happened. So even though all of the people were involved in the same event, so you cannot really trust what people tell you. You have to see hard evidence. This is the approach that the FIFA soccer organization adopts. They don't go, if there is a controversial goal, they don't go around and ask the players or the audience what they think, because different people will say different things. There is some wishful thinking, of course, but they go to what the video camera shows, and then they make a decision.
Sure.
So that's the way, that's the scientific method. FIFA is following the scientific method, meaning they use instruments that have no wishful thinking, no prejudice. They just record what happened. Then you look at the data from the instruments and decide what really happened. So I wish I had access to data of this quality, that would inform me that Bob Lazar is correct, but I don't. He just tells a story. And, who knows if it's correct or not, and I don't know whether to believe it or not.
Yeah. Professor, thank you so much for being on the show. I know you have another interview after this, probably 50 more. I just want to say, Professor Avi Loeb, fearless, brilliant, and unafraid to ask the questions others won't, whether 3i Atlas turns out to be alien tech or a cosmic curveball. One thing's clear, the search for truth demands imagination, courage, and a willingness to challenge the status quo. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with a fellow stargazer, and don't forget to subscribe for more conversations that push the boundaries of science and thought. Doctor, thank you so much for being with us. Keep doing what you're doing, and let's see what happens in the next weeks or months. It's going to be interesting.
Thanks for having me, and stay curious. And for me, science is the privilege of maintaining my childhood curiosity. So all the kids out there, become scientists.
Exactly. I want to send you my book. Where should I send it? Should I go on your website? Is there an address there?
Yes, there is one.
Okay.
If you don't find it there, let me know, and I'll give it.
Okay. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Doctor.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Be sure to experience The Liberty Code by Ray Shasho. The novel explores a tense future where political intrigue, military conflict, and extraterrestrial intervention collide in a high-stakes battle for the survival of humanity. Available now at bookbaby.com, amazon.com, and on audiobook at barnesandnobles.com.